Swiss cheese. Okay, Mom. Thank you.
I don't want to take up too much more of our time here, and I just want to kind of get to Analū, but if you don't already know or if you didn't read the flyer we had on Analū, he is the project director for the Kekoʻolani project, which is a massive undertaking because it's the ceded land inventory. If anybody's familiar with that kind of stuff, you know how much work that's going to take. So he's the lead on that. It's a federally funded project out of the Administration for Native Americans. So it's like it's an unreal project. And today is going to be talking about the importance of genealogy and how we can actually do genealogies. And for a lot of us here, Hawaiian and non-Hawaiian, doing genealogy is very important. But for Hawaiians, it's even more important, especially if you live in Hawaii, you're trying to get resources. So he's going to try and, I guess, help us figure out how to navigate through the whole process. So I'd like to introduce Analū Josephides.
Aloha mai kākou. O wau Analū ka me ia moku ke ki kane kahikili Josephides. A hanau ia au mā Waiʻanae e uka o ka ala. A mai tuu wā liili e hele me tuupuna wahine a puni te motupuni mai ta motupuni o te ave a ta motupuni o ka helelani. E a o mai pili ana te tahi mea moʻolelo e pili me na kanaka maoli. My name is Analū Josephides, and I am from Waiʻanae, born and raised by my kupuna, and traveled with my kupuna to the various lands of these islands, learning the various things that was taught to me, the various mea, from the moʻolelos and the genealogies that is part of that moʻolelo, that is of our people of old. As you're taught, not all is learned in one halau, as well as for me, not all was learned in my halau, in my tupuna, in the hale of my kupuna. So as I grew, I ventured out and I studied with various experts, teachers throughout the islands. And one of my biggest teachers and influence is Dr. Lily Kalaka Me'elehiva at the Center for Hawaiian Studies, who I've been studying under for the past 4 years. I had the opportunity to learn from my mother's mom, my tupuna wahine, up until 2000 when she passed away at the age of 84 years old. And before she left, she gave that okay that we must go on to other halau. We must seek other authority, other figures to teach us. And so what I'm doing is not teaching you. I'm here today to share with all of you what I've learned in a Cliff Note style. Because then if I was to share with you everything, we would have to sit at my hale for weeks on end, and you guys wouldn't go home, and then I would get so tired of you guys. No, I'm just joking. And so I'm just bringing little excerpts from all the people I've learned, and of course, from Keakua. As even pre-missionaries, Keakua was important. Placing God before you and seeking that spirit to fill you with that understanding, whether it's from Kane, Ku, Lono, Kanaloa, Jehovah, Jesus, Buddha, whatever your preferences of worship is, that is the ultimate source. We're taught to be in line with ourselves, to have a grasp of this understanding of genealogy and mo'olelo. We need to have an alignment with Keakua, Na'aumakua, Uhane Hemolele, a Unuhi Pili, ai ole Unihi Pili. That akua that you worship, that malamas you and your ohana. That aumakua that protects you and guides you and leads you. That spirit that dwells within you, that fills you with that life. That unuhi or unihi pili, that is that foundation that your life is based upon. As for myself, it is Christianity because of today. But with the understanding of that ancient traditional alignment, the alignment that I just spoke of is not a Christian spiritual alignment. It comes from the old. But with implementing, that's how we're able to survive our beliefs, our wants, creating our new traditions, creating for our future children to then say it is tradition of my kupuna one day. So in keeping in mind what I just shared is as we speak, as we share, as we talk, as we learn to have that spiritual understanding on how one is able to grasp Moʻokūʻauhau or genealogy. And that was one of my first lessons as a kamali'i from my kupuna, is knowing the spirit and placing Keakua ma'amuo o ka kokino before our bodies. So, in the ancient days, there was several types of genealogies. We say cosmogonic genealogies. There was actually 10, 5 spoken of by David Malo, 5 spoken of by Abraham Fornander. And there's like this one hanging genealogy, which then makes it 11 cosmogonic genealogy, which represents the priestly class of Moloka'i, or Nakamali'i o Laka. We won't get into detail on each of them, but I'll just share you cliff notes on those genealogies, who it was created for, and how it relates to us today. Well, in the 10 cosmogonic genealogies, you had Paliku, and Paliku was for Papahanaumoku, or Haumea. Lolo became a particular type of chiefly class that dwelt up in Helemano area, in Wahiawa area, above Kukaniloko. And these are the various chiefs, the descendants that had to be present at the highest birth, the birth of a highest chief. And that is the birthing place called Kukaniloko. And Lolo is also a genealogy made for Papahanaumoku, or Haumea. And when you hear me say Papahanaumoku, it's Mother Earth. It is Papa who gave birth to this earth, to the islands, to the land. And when I say Haumea, Haumea is because it's another one of her, if you want to call it, manifestations. Every female in here is a form of Papahanaumoku, or Haumea, because of Haumea, because you all are defiled because of the ma'i. And so this is from the ancient time. So when you hear me talk about Haumea and Papahanaumoku, it's relative to the female and to the transformation of the next female and the generations to come. The Kumulipo, which we have Liliuokalani's version and Martha Beckwith, who is doing a study or has done a study of the Kumulipo. And the Kumulipo has 16 was, or time frames, eras. And it goes from the birthing of like Limu, and from whence the sea creatures came, and from whence various lands was produced and what was produced on the land, when the first female had come into play, which was Laʻilaʻi, and talked about her mating with Kane and her mating with Ki'i, and the Akua children that was born from these unions. The Kumulipo brings us all the way up into the 16th wa, where it discusses the chiefs. And if anybody knows, the Kumulipo was created for Kalani Nui Yamamau, a high chief of the island of Hawaii. I may refer to it as the island of Keʻave. You hear Keʻave represents Hawaii, Piʻilani, a high chief, represents Maui, Kakuiheva represents Oʻahu, Mano Kalanipo represents Kauai, and Kahelelani represents Niʻihau. And when I talk of Laka, when I speak of Laka and I speak of Molokai Ahina, I speak of the island of Molokai. And so with explaining that, then you'll understand when I say certain terms or talk about certain things. Anyhow, the Kumulipo was basically designed, if we can use that Western concept, for Kalakaua and Liliuokalani to promulgate who they were as the rulers, as the chiefs, as the mo'i. But really, it was made for Kalani Nui Yamamau and Alapa'i Wahine, which are the kupuna of Kalakaua and Liliuokalani. This is one of the 10 cosmogonic genealogies that I'm speaking of today. The next one is Kapohihi. Kapohihi is an unknown genealogy. Well, can it be known? Can it be made known? Will we ever discover, do we have a Kapohihi? Are you the descendant of Kapohihi? Or what is Kapohihi? Well, Kapohihi could represent so many things, and one of them, for just one example, is you have visions, you prophesy, you have some form of prophecy that this genealogy comes to you, and it is created through the Spirit, coming from Akua, coming from that time of darkness. Before Au, there was Po, but yet something is feeding you to understand, what is it? Where is these names coming from? Why am I at the bottom of all these names? That is Kapohihi. It is one of that 10 cosmogonic genealogies that is not known to just anyone, but may be unveiled to you at whatever time. You might go through your whole life not knowing, and maybe at the day of your death or your passing, your hala, because I don't want to say death because we actually live on, even in a traditional thought, Hawaiians never die. They just hala, pass on. into that next realm, that day is when you might see kapohihi and what that may be or mean to you, maybe at the time of crossing and passing. And it was only meant for you to know. That is why it's called kapohihi. There is the fifth that Davida Malo speaks about, and that's Puanue. Puanue is, of course, represents the genealogies of Papa and Wakea. And Wakea is the mate of Papa, or also known as Papa Hanamoku. Again, she's the earth mother, and Wakea is the sky father. And from them comes this birthing of life. And that genealogy, Puanue, is representing the two of them. Then under Abraham Fornander, now before I go and discuss the five that he talks about in brief, people wonder, well, why is Abraham Fornander even thought of? He's a haole. He's a, foreigner. He comes from wherever, England, Scotland, wherever he comes from. And because that's not important to me, and I don't think it should be important to Hawaiians. At least we know who he is and what he's about and what he's doing here. That's just for my manao. But he marries a very important family. He marries into a Molokaʻi family of high lineage, both chiefly and priestly. He marries into the lineage of Kaiakea. And his wife, who is, I believe, and don't quote me, the great-granddaughter of Kaiakea. And Kaiakea is a significant person. He is the only person in the entire island chain that Kamehameha would remove his malo in Kaiakea's family's home. Not necessarily in front of Kaiakea, but in his family's home. And he could sleep without his malo. Kaiakea comes from a genealogical family from Moanalua, with ties to Molokaʻi from his priestly lines, but he descends from Kepoʻolani, from the Peleʻiholani families, from the Kuali'i families, from the Kakuiheva line, that chiefly line of Oʻahu. And he dedicates himself to his life to Kamehameha the Conqueror as a genealogist, as Kamehameha was taking over the islands with his advisors. Many of the chiefs, the priests, the genealogists gave themselves to that ruling chief that's conquering so that they, feared their life. They didn't want to die. They wanted to be saved. So he gives himself to Kamehameha, and he passes his stories, his mo'olelo, to his children, down to his grandchildren, and the stories continue on. Well, so happened, Mr. Fornander marries into the family. Ooh, I can write a story. I can talk about these Hawaiian people. I can put in my journal. That's how we come to have an account of the Polynesian race, its origins and migrations by Abraham Fornander, because of his relationship to the Kaiakea family. So what you're getting is not necessarily a whole view when you read through this of the manao of the various chiefs or various peoples from throughout the islands, although he'll write about everybody from throughout the islands based on the perception of the Molokaʻi people or that Molokaʻi family, the Kaiakea clan, which is, till today, plays a very powerful part in today's society. When you go to Molokaʻi, you ask any Hawaiian there who descends from the original people of Molokaʻi before the white men came, and they'll tell you, I am a pula o Kaiakea. They are the descendants. They are the pua, the bud of Kaiakea. And they play various important roles in the community's decisions, such as Auntie Joyce Kainoa of Pelekunu Valley, Malia Kuragawa, who's an attorney, and now back on Molokaʻi. When you go to Molokaʻi and you mention certain people's name, they say, oh, I'll take you to their house. And you're meeting the descendants of Kaiakea. And so, that's a little bit about how Abraham Fornander gets his information and where he discusses the other five cosmogonic genealogies. But he should have discussed 6, but it's not discussed. That's the genealogies of the priestly clan. Why? Well, we can use our own decisions and thoughts, theories. But from my manao is, I'm sure his wahine, as powerful as our women were and still is, and men have to just realize that the women was our kua, our backbone, our decision making. His wahine said a'ole, because that is an ike, that is not just for anyone, that is kapohihi. So the 5 that Abraham Fernandez talks about is the kumu'uli. Now, the kumu'uli, it talks about wakea, and a play on wakea's sexual life, and it discusses wakea's mating, and it represents wakea, Sky Father. Vela ahilani, which also represents, some will disagree with me, so you use your own decisions on this. That struggle between the kane and the wahine, or papa and wakea, and their sexual battles, yeah? That warring between papa and wakea occurs because wakea is getting kind of tired of papa hanau moku. You know, he wants something new, you know? You got to understand now, everything in Hawaiian has sexual connotations to it, but everything is not just about sex. If anybody understand what I just said, don't look at it literally. Try to look for the kauna, that hidden meaning. So he goes off and he sleeps with his daughter. You know, we'll get into that in a bit, but I'm just kind of giving a play on Vela Ahilani. And she's angry. She explodes while he's exploding with his daughter. And she takes off to Tahiti. And she finds another kane. Get revenge. So Wakea feels like, oh my gosh, I don't want her to be doing that. You know, I gotta figure out how I will control the situation. How do I bring kapu? Not kapu, as some people sometimes they say kapu. Kapu is like a cannon. Exploding. Kapu. So that's where the time of Wakea is created. And I'm not going to try to jump ahead and try to confuse you folks, but comes of what is known as the Aikapu that became Ainoa in 1819. You guys can read about that. Just think Aikapu, Ainoa, find some stories, find some books, read about it, because then if I go into that, it'll confuse you folks. Now, so that is Vela Ahilani. Now, Opuhonua, which is the third of the 5 that Abraham Fernandez speaks about the cosmogonic genealogies, actually represents all of the cosmogonic genealogies. Opuhonua represents that entire fullness of the earth, of what is born. And then you have Kapapayakea, which is for Vakea. Kapapayakea is the papa to Vakea, or that it's like a formation, you know, the papa. You know, when you guys go to, especially, well, you can go anywhere on the islands, you know, outside by the beach, you have the reef. But it's actually, I like to look at it when you're in the Big Island, you know, you have what is the papa, you have the a'a, which is the rough. You have various names for the different lava. And it's not even lava, because lava is the one that's moving. Once it's hard, it's papa, it's a'a, and it's all different kind of names. And so kapapayakea. And of course, if you think about it, it's Vakea and Papa. Papa Hanau Moku again, bringing life. Yeah? So again, it's a birthing that's happening. It's a sexual thing that's happening and occurring. And it's the elements. Some people say, oh, you mean was one wahine, one man, you know. Well, think about the elements. Think about creation. Think about the source. Like in the, going back to the Kumulipo. In the Kumulipo, you have the earth like this. Well, there's this part where it's Okawale wale kumuho nua ia. The wale wale, the slime that's within the earth, that bubbling, that boiling. And that's what the cosmogonic genealogies are about, that creation, that time period where everything was just happening, the elements. And Tipua Kanakaole, Kanahele, will tell you, listen to the elements, and the elements will teach you, will tell you. On a side note, this friend of mine, Kapapaloa, was in the mountains. And this was in 1996. And he was up in Mount Ka'ala, and he was carving a makau, a fish hook. And when he was carving it, he didn't know what my middle name was. He just knew me as Analū. And he was carving, but he heard the wind and was listening very carefully. And my tutor always said, never travel in the mountains alone. Never go into the Nahelehele. Never go into the Waukele, which is the deepest of the forest, where the Akua dwell, alone. Sometimes you may not come back. Oh, we do it though. And we freak ourselves out when we by ourselves in there. I mean, I can speak for myself. I go up in a mountain, freak myself out, kind of trying to get some some bamboo for something that I need. And I'm up in Nu'uanu because I hop over the state fence and go run up or go get the ohe. And then we're up. I'm up there by myself. My friend didn't want to go in, so I'm like trying to chop some stuff down. And I did all my pule, whatever I was supposed to do. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing things. I'm thinking, okay, I belong in Kekela Ward or State Hospital or something. But it's so true. If you try it one day. Go in the mountains, you'll listen very carefully. And it's listening to the elements. Well, Brother Kapapaloa was hearing the wind, Kameiamoku, Kameiamoku, Kameiamoku. 3 times he heard, he dug out of there. So I show up at his house. I didn't call him or anything. I just show up at his house. And because he said that he was going to get 800 bags of poi and he needed somebody to help him for ku'i. And so I was like, okay, I'll go help you. So I go up to his property, up in Luolole Valley. And we end up talking about this fish hook. He started sharing. Then he started sharing with me. Then, of course, I'm freaking him out because I'm starting to tell him about what's happening around his house, what I see, what's going on. And then he starts telling me his story, and I'm like, "Brah, do you know what my name is?" Analū. And I says, "No, yeah, that's my first name." "Well, do you know what my middle name is?" He says, "No." I said, "That's my middle name." I'm like, "Oh, no, wow." And he made it so sharp. Now, in the ancient time, there was various types of hook that was made. And how sharp or how dull depends on what they're trying to tell you. So he places this sharp thing to me, and it touches me, and I quickly take it off, and I says, "Whoa." It was jabbing right in here. And already I'm thinking, what's going on here? What's up with this? Well, Kameiamoku was one of the 4 kona uncles for Kamehameha, and he was a high chief, and he was known as, the British in the 1800s called him and his twin brother Kapanava the royal twins of Kekoʻolani, or the royal twins of Kohala. And anyhow, he was a fierce warrior where he was in a trap one day by a chief Ahia up in Kohala. And there's an olelo no'eau on him. You just look under Kameiamoku or Ahia, and it talks about how Ahia was ready to kill him. And Kameiamoku, looking, was in a papa'i position, a crab position. Seeing Kamehameha running, Kamehameha wanted to hurry up save Kameiamoku. Well, knowing Kameiamoku was ready for die, Kameiamoku just did a particular lua move, and he killed Ahia. And so this fish hook represented just that. And it freaked me because it was digging into right in this area. So anyhow, we have to listen to the elements. We have to come to understand what is it that it's telling us. Some people say, well, what do you mean listen to a tree? Or what do you mean listen to the air? Or what do you mean listen to the ocean? Listen to how many times the ocean pounds against the reef and how it pounds against the reef. There's a rhythm. And in that rhythm is our ancestors, is that spirit. You ever hear them pa'i? You listen to the pa'i of the pahu. it'll talk to you. If your pahu don't talk to you, you need to burn it. Because that's the ancestors talking to us. So I just wanted to give you a side note on the elements. Now, the last one that leads us into who we are today, actually, is the kumu honua. Kumu honua represents kind of like the first human in the owl period, but not necessarily human. But as you study genealogy or do your own research and you start reading all these various books, which will be introduced to you today, unless you already know these books, use your judgment. I'm not going to tell you if it's human or not. That's your judgment in your study, because then it tells you, gosh, brother never tell me, so now I got to go Center for Hawaiian Studies and go learn about it. I got to go enroll at Hawaiian Studies and learn about it. Or I got to go to the library. Oh, I'm a Hawaiian, I don't belong in one library. So, these are things that, oh, now I got to go over there. Well, good for you guys. Go and go learn. Because you want to know, well, is Kumu Honua a real person? Well, what would the Mormons say? That's another thing I want you guys to think about. That's why I'm going to throw stuff out to you guys. You guys are going to be like, huh? Get some things answered today out that you guys probably, well, how do I do my genealogy? Where do I come from? How do I know I come from there? Yeah? So, Kumu Honua is the first, what that term? I'm not always good with saying certain words because, makimaki au e olelo Hawaii e pili ana ke kahi mau mea pili me ka Moʻokūʻauhau a me na moʻolelo e pili me na kako kupuna o ka wā mamua hiti te i o wahi. Hiti te olelo maalahi ma ka olelo Hawaii. A ole e olelo haole a pelano hoi. A pākiki ke la mau mea e hoa o e hai aku ia oko e pili ana ke kahi mea Moʻokūʻauhau e pili me te ia mea. See, it's so much easier when you're talking about the genealogies and the mo'olelo, the stories of our ancestors, and about how to do and what to do and where to do when you're talking Hawaiian, because it's just, so much easier. Then I gotta go look for the word progenitor or progenitor. See, when I could just tell them in Hawaiian in a simple word. So anyway, Kumu Honua is the progenitor of the owl period, of that time period, the day. The light. Now, I'm sharing a lot of this in Cliff Note, yeah? That gives opportunity for you folks to actually go out there and do your own research and your own study to get that ini, that yearning to come out. Because, like I said, if I was to go step by step, I would take the first 5 cosmogonic genealogies and take you through it for a few weeks. And in-depth, studying chants. So I just gave you Cliff Notes. Yeah, if you feel like, wow, I wish come on, one more, a little bit of it. Go to the library or enroll at Center for Hawaiian Studies and take Dr. Kamele Hiva's genealogies course. So anyhow, we go from Kumu Honua many generations down to Papa and Wakea, which is Earth Mother and Sky Father. They give birth to Hoʻokukalani, which is what is in the universe? What is all the stars? That various elements that's in the spaces, the ho'oleva, between the heavens and the earth. And then, of course, Wakea checks his daughter out and says, oh, this is a good thing. This is a wonderful thing that was created. I believe through this creation, something better could be created, which was Haloa Naka, and then Haloa. You have the fetus that was not necessarily birthed into a natural child, that was planted, which a lot of us know that story already, which came the kalo, the taro, and which, just a little note there, you go to the Greek islands, they call it kalo kasi esculente. That's the scientific word. And if you go look at their kalo kasi, which for short is called kalo, which they call it kalo themselves because they don't like say the whole word, elephant ears. And the reason why I know that is because I visited there and I'm half Greek. My father's from the Mediterranean, so I was able to see and learn about the taro and the Greeks and their mythology behind the taro, which is the same as us. Of course, using Greek words, yeah? Then you have Haloa, who is the junior line, which is where we come from, the Hawaiian people. I could say that all of us come from it, every human being, but I don't want to get a Japanese mad or an English person mad, because they might come from something else that may be the same thing. But maybe one day, somebody might discover that connection. So when I say Haloa as our ancestor, I can only speak of it as being the ancestor of the Kanaka Maoli, or the Kanaka Maohi from Tahiti, or the Kanaka Maori from Aotearoa, or the various Kanaka mai tamutupuni i roto tapakipa. Anyhow, so from Haloa, we go generations down. So now we went from Kumuhonua to Papawakea to Haloa. And now in between there's generations, which if you go into Hawaiian Genealogies, Volume 1 and Volume 2, Edith Mackenzie, you may not like her, but hey, that's your business. She didn't make these genealogies. She just abstracted them from old Hawaiian newspapers. That's why it says extracted from Hawaiian language newspapers. Many Hawaiians will complain and grumble, oh, it's wrong. She went misspell them. She just abstracted what our kupuna in the 1800s put in the old Hawaiian newspapers. So in here gives a lot of what we're talking about, and it will tell you those generation gaps that comes from Kumuhonua down to Papa and Wakea, down to Haloa, and so forth. And it may even give you explanations. One of the most vital things that you have to do, I mean, I don't normally tell anybody what to do, but you have to do to understand genealogy, you've got to study Hawaiian language. And don't just study it. Go learn to speak it. Don't study anything Hawaiian. Just learn about it. And if you cannot grasp it, just keep learning about it, because it'll grasp you one day. People don't believe that, but if they stick with it, one day you'll be walking around speaking Hawaiian. Things that you're doing is just, and we cannot say is Hawaiian, the things you're doing, because what it is what is Hawaiian in your action. But to understand and grasp anything of this, even doing modern day genealogy, you will not understand it totally and completely, no matter what you try to do, no matter if you disagree with me, unless you know the Hawaiian language. Now, if you're doing non-Hawaiian genealogy, then it's a different story. Then you better go learn Chinese or something, because in the language is the answer. And I don't work at the Hawaiian language department, so I'm not like promoting for them or anything, but you guys should go learn Hawaiian if you don't already know it. So anyhow, back to Haloa, going down more generations, to Nana Ulu and Ulu, two brothers, who are 34 generations from Kumuhonua, and 14 generations from Papa and Wakea. Nana Ulu and Ulu are two brothers that some say is born in Tahiti, some says is born in one of the islands in Tahiti, that sell to various areas in the Pacific. And the Hawaiian race, as you study it more, descend from both Nana Ulu and Ulu. One is claimed to be the suppressor, and the other one is claimed to be an oppressor, and one is who they did, they did sacrifices, the Ulu line, which Kamehameha was the last one, a descendant of Ulu, that made the last sacrifice. And it says it is of the Ulu line that these sacrifices occur, that the practice of sacrificing, of the luakini heao came about. Anyway, from Nana Ulu and Ulu, you come down 32 generations and to Pili and Pa'au, and that would make it 66 generations from Kumuhonua. Pili the chief, Pa'au the priest. Some say, oh, Pa'au, he's Samoan. Oh, he's Samoan? Well, how you got that from? Oh, because he comes from Upolu. Oh, so is there only Upolu Samoa, Western Samoa? Or is that why, Kohala, there's Upolu? Or because Samoans went over there. If anybody studies the ancient names of Tahiti and the islands surrounding Tahiti, there's a place called Upolu. And Pa'ao was trained by the priestly class, the Tahitian priestly class. And he was from Upolu, studied and trained in Tahiti. So some people thought maybe he came from Upolu, Samoa, and traveled to Tahiti and studied there. He just kind of went on a little canoe ride across the, one island to the other, from Upolu in the Tahitian island chain. And he sails over with Pili. So when they come over here, don't quote me, but maybe about 1400s, maybe 1500s. You guys can go and do some research that says, I better call Analū up and tell them the correct date. And I'll be like so happy because I'll say, yeah, right on, you got it. They come here and they see in their eyes a chaotic group of people. Because there were people here already. Remember now, there's birthing going on with Papa and Vakea and all the descendants in between. There's traveling back and forth between Olopana and Moʻikea and all these various chiefs before Pili and Pa'ao. Well, who are all these people you're talking about, Analū? Well, they're in these books. The works of people, the people of old, Namo'olelo o Kapo'e Kahiko, the ruling chiefs of Hawaii. Again, an account of the Polynesian race. A more modern book, which is an awesome book, kind of combines a lot of this, which is Lili Kala's Native Lands, Foreign Desires, which is almost like a Bible at the Center for Hawaiian Studies, because this is the pretty much only modern-day scholarly work of art that one can follow and know that it's factual based upon whatever facts we have out there because of the way it's cited and sourced. And then, of course, there's the Kumulipo that can talk to you and tell you about all these chiefs or these various names I'm sharing with you. So anyhow, Pili and Pa'ao comes and they set up this system. This chiefly system. The Ali'i Nui, the Kaukau Ali'i, or those lesser chiefs, which are retainers to the high chiefs. The Mak'ainana, the Kawa, or the outcast, those that was banished. And there were certain lands set up for their banishment. And they were tattooed a certain tattoo, where there was certain dots on their head, certain color. People knew that they were kawa, they were defiled. You touched them, you became defiled. You became part of that kawa class. And at the Hawaii State Archives, there's even a genealogy book, actually on microfilm, that talks about who out of the Hawaiian people came from that class. Today, those who find out that they descend from Kawa should not be embarrassed because it's part of history. But it does become a political thing when if that person, let's say it's you or you or you, that find out, I come from this class. And when you start getting active and involved in the movement or various Hawaiian cultural things, mea, somebody will say, to enter in certain groups, "Oi kai no ko kupuna, makao ko makua, makao ko makua hine. Oi kai no ko la ko kupuna." And then they're going to ho'olohe, and they're just going to listen. And when you say certain names, and these who are the genealogists of these various entities know, and then you wonder, why didn't I get in? How come? Whether it's a Lua group, or one of the 4 royal societies, or whatever it may be that's genealogically based, and you have to come from a certain line to be a part of. Because there's still groups, elitist groups like that. And the white men call them elitist. We call them just the way things should be and the way things are for certain things. Yeah? No more one real name for it. Maybe it's because you come from the Kawa class. So anyhow, not to have gone off there, but Pili and Pa'ao have created this class. They tell the people, you guys want to live like this? You stay. And if you can't handle the way we live, and I just give you cliff notes, yeah, talk, then go. They're like, where are we going? Well, this boat's going back to Tahiti. You can get on the boat or you're going to live this way. So boats travel back to Tahiti. And don't quote me, but I'm guessing, which some people may disagree and some people may agree. And you talk to the Maori, they'll somewhat agree. When they went back to Tahiti, then they went sailing back down. You know, because there was not only just one migration to Aotearoa, or what is known as New Zealand. There was multiple, just like us. Became our junior line, our siblings, our ohana, the Maori of Aotearoa, when they left Hawaii. And they have the names of their canoes. And they'll tell you when they left, how come they left. You talk to the Maori, they'll talk to you and tell you all these stories. But you talk to all the Maori, they'll tell you, we don't come from the Hawaiian people. Because as vast as their lands are and their people are, not all of them did come from us. But this is at the time of Pili and Pa'au. So, from Pa'au is this great chiefly class, and priestly class, and from Pili is this chiefly class. And from Pili comes Liloa, which is 18 generations from Pili and Pa'au and 84 generations from Kumuhonua. And everybody, if you don't know about Liloa already, Liloa was a great chief living in Waipio Valley on the island of Hawaii. Liloa was mischievous in what we say kolohe. You know, he wanted to go up Mauka, and he went up Mauka, find a gorgeous wahine, Akahia Kuliana. You know, has some fun, leaves her his loincloth and some other gifts, the lei palaua, and says if it's a boy, give him this. If it's a girl, well, you know, moving on. Modern day Cliff Note. So, Umialiloa is born in Hilo, and he's Umi Aliloa, Umi the son of Liloa. And that's another trick to listen to. Something, yeah? Who that belongs to, that person. So Umialiloa comes a certain age, he's badly beaten up from his stepfather. Of course, he doesn't know until later. And then she's like, Akai Kuliana is telling, please, you know, he's Liloa's son. You can't hit him like that. You'll die. We'll all die. Well, time for Umialiloa to travel. So by the age of, I think, 13, he had children, but not his own. Umialiloa, Hanai, oh yeah, you're my son now. Okay, you're my daughter, you're my son. And of course, there's this aikane system, or this certain type of relationship between a kane and a kane, a chiefly kane, and another kane of their choice that's not kawa class, that goes on with his, especially Pi'imai Kawa'a, one of his Hanai children. And they all accompany him to Waipio, and he comes to the doorstep, and at that doorstep of the chief's house, already there, who are you? He didn't care. He went running straight into the house, dropped right on top of Liloa's lap, and now you can kill him already, because there's no saving him. But when everything is shown, Liloa stops everyone and says, this is my son. Well, his other son from a high union that he had from a high chiefess, his son Hakau, was pissed off because, no, I can't have a brother. I'm ruling this kingdom. This is mine. And you see the politics. He's my junior line. I'm his senior line. Now listen to that very carefully, because when you're doing genealogy, that plays a big part. Well, everybody hated Hakau because he treated everybody bad. So the Liloa's priest that became Hakau's priest when Liloa passed away kind of put something together to go against Hakau and get Liloa and some people to kill Hakau and make gets Umialiloa and somewhat of his people to kill Hakau and makes Umialiloa the chief, the ruling chief. So these little mo'olelos or excerpts of mo'olelos, keep in mind, it's teaching you why genealogy, what is genealogy, what kind of power does genealogy hold? Where does this source come from? What spirit does it come from? What akua does it come from? And remember now, a lot of our mo'i and our ali'i nui were akua-like because of their birthing. Yeah? So think of politics, think of power, think of prestige, think of malama, caring for. Think of senior and junior line. If the senior takes care of the junior, then and the junior malama is the senior, think of that reciprocation process of malama. And Umialiloa did just all of that. He malama. And they malama'd him, or malamaia. And so, from Liloa down to Kamehameha the First, let's skip more generations. It's 7 generations and 91 generations from Kumuhonua. So, some people say, well, what is that? Great, 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 great. Wow, that's so far away. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, that's to the 2nd degree of the 3rd power of, because you hear genealogists in the Western concept talk like that. But if you tell, like in the old days, the Hawaiian says, oh, something eating me inside. The Hawaiian will say, oh, that's the man-eating disease. The Haole would say, that's called cancer. So when I speak, you'll hear me speak a certain way. You use the term that best fits you in discussing genealogy and all the aspects of genealogy. Now, everyone pretty much kind of knows about Kamehameha the First. Kamehameha the First, who is also known as Paea Kunuiakea. He was Po'olua child. Po'olua meaning one who had 2 fathers because the mother didn't know which one was who, never have DNA testing back then. And so Kahekili, the king of Maui, was one of his fathers, and Keoa of Kohala was his other father. And of course, they wanted to kill him because of the prophecies that was made about this young birthing Kamehameha that would be great. He's Kunuiakea, the great ku of Wakea. He is a manifestation of the god Ku and of Wakea, the Sky Father. And Kunuiakea is also a manifestation of Kanehekili, which is of the great god Kane, of the thunders, of the rolling thunders of the sky. So it's all interrelated to understand that power that Kamehameha has as he goes through and nobody ends up killing him at birth and he's raised and they say, please don't kill him and blah, blah, blah. You go into these stories, like I said, and you read about it and you'll learn. I'm just here to maybe invite you into this world, to share with you, to open your mind, your thoughts, your na'au, to that desire. You want to know how to do genealogy. You want to learn about what is genealogy. This is where it begins. From the time of Po to the time of Ao to Ikeava, to this time. Now, from Kamehameha the First to present-day Hawaiians is only 8 generations. But 99 generations, we are 99 generations away from Kumuhonua. Generations? Yeah, we're 8 generations from him. That's about right. 1721, that 9 generations between me and my 6th great grandfather, and 8 generations, 1750. See, so it's about right. So then we look at 25 years from him to us, and we come out with that. Now, when we look at present-day Hawaiians, is it important? Let me ask you folks, how important is it to say, oh, I come from Kamehameha? Anybody? Well, if that's truly your tutu, of course it's important. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. But if that's not your tutu, let it be not your tutu. Let it be not your ancestor. Because what if your ancestor was, I don't know, Kaikio Eva, a chief that dwelt and ruled over Kauai for a time period during the early 1800s. Oh, because he never ruled all the islands, like be from him. if you think about that today, everybody in the grandmother, not going to speak Waiʻanae terms, everybody in the grandmother like come from a chief. But it's okay if you come from a makainana. Because today we have to be makainana to move forward, to grasp that understanding and create that unity. Because if I walk into the Department of Health and tell them, oh, you know, I come from the kings and the queens, I like my birth certificate. They say, yeah, anyways, you're right. But if you go in there and say, oh, Kalamai, how much is this and how come this? And now we cannot help that the situation like that. The only way we can is we lobby Congress and say we don't like the way Dr. Onaka is running the Department of Health. We can do something about that. But if we come in with a patient and a real pleasant attitude and try to do things. Now some people may disagree with me, but hey, it's working for me, and I've been doing this a long time, and I do this as a living. Besides my present job as the director for this, I work and run my father's company doing land research and genealogical research for Native Hawaiians. I don't do genealogy research for nobody else but Hawaiians. Because I gotta take care of my people first before I take care of anybody else, because they're not taking care of us. So to do all this research and grasp all this information, I'm going to have to go into the Department of Health or the Bureau of Conveyance or the Hawaii State Archives or the circuit courts and malama them so that they malama me. Now, one of the students in this semester's course at Center for Hawaiian Studies in the Mahele Land Awards for 40 class that do a study of land, various type of lands from crown lands to government lands to kuleanas and so forth, didn't listen very carefully to that, what I just said. And now I wasn't the one that told him this, was the actual teacher who I work for as well, April Drexel. Wonderful, wonderful historian, genealogist, orator. Stricter than me, sterner than me. Got her whip out, even if you can't see it. Said, don't diss the state workers. Don't diss the people at the Department of Health, because they're going to slam the door on you. Brother went over there to the state archives and demanded. And he got slapped one side. He demanded again, he got slapped the other side. So I said, well, he's following God's rule. Turn the cheek, get slapped again. You know, a little joke there. Thank you for laughing. Anyhow, what it is to be present-day Hawaiian, to grasp the connection to these people that we spoke about today, to grasp that understanding why. Well, it tells about who we are. Genealogy is not just a list of names. For example, you know, I'm just going to use first names. You know, this is my grandfather, and this is my grandmother, and this is my mom, and this is my father, and there's me. That's part of genealogy. That's just like a small part. But many Hawaiians today are looking just, oh, all these names. Those names mean nothing unless you know the mo'olelo. Unless you know where they're from, who they're from, and even if you don't know who they're from, because sometimes hard to go back for certain people, know what the elements were. Don't just study them. You find out, okay, for example, my grandmother comes from Oʻahu, South Kona. Okay, so fine. I can't find any more on her, which I could because I knew her, right? But I'm just making like I don't. Okay, I'm going to learn about Oʻahu. I'm going to study Oʻahu, the place. And when I've exhausted myself studying Oʻahu, I'm going to study South Kona. And when I'm past studying South Kona, I'm going to study the island of Hawaii. Because that will tell me what the people worshiped, who they worshiped, where they worshiped. And if they did that, that means my tutu worshiped that way too. Unless she was one Aiku and one Ai'a, who never liked worship, nothing. Who were, they were rebels, lived up in the Kuahivi and the Nahelehele. So, it's not just about names, it's about mo'olelo. Well, how do we find about mo'olelos? Again, in these various books that I've presented to you folks, you might want to even look in a modern day conservation report. These scientists, I really hate them. But you know what? One good thing about scientists, as sloppy as a job they're doing, because not all are, but you try the scientist, the archaeologist that's doing hokulia development in north-south corner, kind of like the boundary lines over there, down in Keopuka and Keʻekeʻe, in kind of Leo side of South Kona, and you see what they're unveiling and how they're just unearthing the iwi of our kupuna and destroying the heiau and all the various sacred sites. They put together an EIS statement or a conservation statement, and then they put together mo'olelo, and they put together genealogies, and they talk about the plant life, and they talk about all those things. Now, this was done really well because this is on the Ahupua of Moanalua, and it was the Holt and Damon family, which were Hapa Haole, Hapa Hawaii, that put this together with the scientists, and they made sure, they were that committee that made sure of it. So when you look into that, you'll find genealogies, you find mo'olelos, you find all kinds of stuff that's all pili to this. So you might want to, of course, create this, a chart that will have this on it. And then you know how you type up on research paper for your class? All that mo'olelo can be placed in a research paper format attached with this, and that becomes a history to your family. Just quickly to move ahead, just to step back a bit, I wanted to let you know about sacred and highest born. It is known that Kauai, we're stepping back a bit now. It is talked about that Kauai and Oʻahu are a place of the highest birthing of the chiefs. It took people from the chiefs from Hawaii to come sail back to Kauai and Oʻahu because that's their senior lines, and they were the undefiled chiefs. And those are the places of Haena on Kauai and Kukaniloko on Oʻahu. Then we considered Lepo Ali'i, or the Ali'i that were defiled because they interrelated themselves sexually with chiefs of lesser status or Makainana, as the chiefs that came from Hawaii or Kohala area of Hawaii or various areas of Hawaii, but we just choose Kohala as one because they played a more dominating role. I don't care what anybody from Kauai or Ni'ihau or Oʻahu says about how sacred they are or how high in status they are. Hawaii and Maui still kick their you-know-what. But guess what? In the end, you look at the Hawaii Islands genealogy and why they were able to do that. As savage and radical, and you know, savage is such a colonized term, so forgive me, but as radical as they were, as dominating as they were, it was because they are lineal descendants of Kauai and of Oʻahu, because that's where the mana came from. Now, the high-ranking chiefs that dwelt in Maui was of Iao Wailuku, or in Iao Valley within, you have this great big heiau that has the iwi of Kekoʻolani and all these various chiefs. Even the chiefs that dwelt on other islands had their iwi taken to Iao to be buried because of their rank. And then the control of Kauiki in Hana was like a fortress. When you controlled Kauiki, you controlled majority of Maui because of their location. The Hawaii Island chiefs could not conquer. They would be conquered. That's why the Hawaii Island chiefs had to come around and come up from Makena and Kihei side and come in from Wailea and attack this way up into Iao to overtake Maui. Once they did that, then they come in around Haiku way and come into Keanai way to overtake the Kauiki fortress. But you had to have been of a particular chiefly rank or warrior status to have control politically over Kauiki. And again, you want to read about that, Kamakao's book in Ruling Chiefs, and of course Malo in his Hawaiian Antiquities. Now, the priestly class, everybody knows, talks about Molokai, a dwelling place for Laka, Remember now, not everybody who came from the priestly class came from Molokai. In every district, there was a kahuna. And if you say you're a kahuna, be careful, somebody might ask you, well, what kind kahuna are you? You in kahuna anana, you in kahuna lao lapa'au, you in kahuna lomi lomi, you kahuna kukulu ikawa'a. Do you build boats? Do you do black magic? Do you do this? Do you do that? There's over 300 types of kahuna. You want to learn about that? The mythology, not the myth now, the mythology of that, Hawaiian Studies 270, April Drexel, Center for Hawaiian Studies. Anyhow, why genealogy yesterday that leads to genealogy today is because what we're going through today, and I'm going to give you in the cliff note, is the same thing our ancestors went through. Well, we need genealogy to prove that we half Hawaiian, 50% Hawaiian, so we can get Hawaiian homestead. We need genealogy no matter what blood quantum it is because we need to get into Kamehameha schools, or we like money from Kamehameha schools to go to the university. We need genealogy because Native Hawaiian Leadership Project says we need genealogy to show that we are some form of Hawaiians, that we can get monies, and so forth. Mea, mea, mea. We need genealogy because we have to get into this elite group called Mama Kakawa. We got to get genealogy because if we want to graduate from a particular class in the Lua, we have to ha'i our genealogy. And then there's those who want genealogy because, oh, if I claim I come from Kamehameha, then I can go and be on radical and claim the lands. Or, how's about this? And you know, you guys can just hear how I feel about a lot of stuff, yeah? But that's the kind of mana'o you'll have when you're doing research. Because how's about this? Because I'm Hawaiian by blood, I don't have to prove that to no one. I have the right to various claims as a Hawaiian, being and living here in these islands that did not belong to my ancestors, belong to the gods that gave to my ancestors a place for them to malama, to care for, and not to destroy. Until we can understand that concept, those who want to do genealogy because they like come from Kamehameha, and they like come from all these other chiefs because they like get the land, but yet they cannot even clean their 1 square foot of land outside their apartment, or pick up that cigarette butt that's at the bus stop. Don't expect to use genealogy to get land, but just note that genealogy and land interweaves together, because the land is our Earth Mother, Papahanaumoku, from whence we came. People say, Christianity's Christian this, Christian that. Why am I jumping to Christianity? What does the Christians believe? Where do we come from? Can we say Papahanaumoku? They might get mad because they don't understand Hawaiian. But doesn't the Bible say we come from the earth? What is it? Dust to dust, ashes to ashes? Well, from Papahanaumoku, from the earth do we come. So we got to look at the various concepts of yesterday to understand what's happening today. The same thing, just in different, I guess you can look at it in different metaphors. Well, how do I do my research? Well, I only made so many copies, so if there's not enough, you guys can share and make copies. We can go to the archives and do research. You can go to the Mormon Church and do research. You can go to the Bureau of Conveyance and do research, which is the Department of Land and Natural Resources. You can go to the Circuit Court and do research. You can go all over this island and do research. You can even go sit at your uncle's house and do genealogy research by talking start with your uncle, with your father, with your mother. And you know, sometimes they're going to be like what's interesting is, wait, I gotta drink a sip real quick, excuse me. What's interesting is, when I was a little boy, I used to wait. My tutu had this beautiful home, And I used to wait because in one of her walls there was this deep hole, like, I call it a hole, but it was actually like some cupboard or something. But to me it was one hole where all the records was and the pictures, and I just sat there because I knew get something inside I like look at, even if I look at it every day. So what happened was, I sat there, and my sisters and my cousins would come out, and they would tell, oh, you better go away from over there, because if you go over there, Tutu going to give you lickings. You're going to get one putty. Well, guess what? Tutu would come out and go, oh, boy, what you waiting for? I thought, oh, Tutu, nothing. Says, boy, tell me the truth, what you waiting for? Tutu, I like see pictures. Oh, boy, oh, okay, come. And she put me up on top next to her, and we opened up all the photographs, and she talked about all these kupunas. Now, she was blessed because of the family she comes from and the line she descends from. She had pictures of her Hawaiian tutus from the first time pictures were taken here in the islands. So because of that, we are fortunate. Of course, we don't walk around telling, well, I got pictures and you don't. Because, yeah, I like go home and then my house burned down. No, I don't think so. You know, we get what I think the Japanese say bachi. I don't know. So I was able to sit there and learn that. And my tutu didn't hit me the way my sisters and my cousins said she would. But I took that chance. And that's what you got to do. Take that chance. I don't know if any of your kupuna is still alive, but my tutu came from a particular family that was able to have this knowledge. I don't know if you folks are familiar with Auntie Dorothy Kahananui. And Auntie Dorothy Kahananui was a professor, I guess they call it emeritus, I don't know. Anyhow, and she had the music department named after her at UH Manoa. Her daughter, which is another one I learned and studied under, was one of the heads of Kamehameha School's music department, Auntie Dorothy Gillette. You know, and this is where I learned this. Auntie Dorothy Kahananui wrote some pamphlets, or I guess you would call books or leaflets, on mele, on mo'olelo. And this is my grandma's aunt. And so, coming from this particular type of family, that's why we had certain things and we were able to have certain things. Sometimes you're not as fortunate to have maybe the pala side of it, but who knows, you might come down and sit down with your uncle, and your uncle you might say, hey uncle, what, you used to surf? Oh yeah, boy, and you know, because I did that with my uncle, my mother's brother. And yeah, you know Uncle Jesse Kalima. Uncle, you know Uncle Jesse Kalima? You know, everybody just yearns to know who Uncle Jesse Kalima was. I mean, you know, if you knew Uncle Jesse Kalima and his sisters, that was the biggest thing to know if you came from Waikiki or Kapahulu or that area, because the sisters were humongous. I remember a couple of them in their old age. They were humongous, and they were beautiful musicians, and Uncle Jesse taught everybody how to surf down in Waikiki. You know, he's not the only one. I'm sure there's others. But Uncle starts talking. Then he starts saying, yeah, and you know, Tutu Lady used to get mad at me because I used to just go off with Uncle Raymond. We go surfing. Then I started, oh, how come, what? And then he starts talking about Tutu Lady. You see, you don't go there and say, with the record and go, Uncle, talk to me, tell me about from when you were 3 years old. Because I got to do this for my class. I tell you the truth. That's the first step you should go, is to your uncle, your aunties, your mother, your father, your tutus, their cousins. I'm fortunate enough to have some of my tutus cousins still around. Many of them are passing on, and many of the young generation do not care. We have to find a place within ourselves to care, to desire, to want. And do not be embarrassed, but become that image that you always hope to have seen that guide you. Become that image for the next Hawaiian. Because our Hawaiian children today, they're rude, disrespectful. Because let me tell you, I'm serious. If we were doing that kind of crap inside of our classrooms growing up, we would get lickings. And let me tell you, our teachers were little tiny Japanese people. And yet we feared them, because after she would slap us, mom would slap us, dad would slap us, and Tutu would slap us. That's a whole lot of slaps that today none of the kids get, because CPS. So, just remember, malama. Malama your older sibling and they will malama you. It's a reciprocal process. Malama your kupuna. People say, oh, how come you hang out with all the old folks? It's not that I hang out with all the old folks because, oh yeah, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to hang out with all the old folks at Kuakini Hospital. But you try. I remember when my mother forced me to volunteer, because she's a nurse at Kuakini before, and I had to volunteer help with the old folks. So I'd sit there and they would tell me all their stories, and I'd be like, Mom, next time can you put me at the Hawaiian kupuna? But even the non-Hawaiian kupuna taught me a lot about the Hawaiian people. They taught me a lot because they were second generation, third generation here that's not Hawaiian but lived with the Hawaiians. Anyhow, moving on from there, here is a beginner's guide for genealogical research. It's not like, don't look at all this and say, oh, this is what Analū said. Oh, this is what Analū gave. Because whoever you tell, because the community is very small, will try to tell you anyways. He's just giving you little things to try to help you. Not to say that anything you have is factual, or anything I said today is, oh, you gotta follow that, or you gotta listen to that, or you gotta adhere to that, or that is just the plain truth. Just know that it is factual, but it's coming from one halal that other halal may speak the same about, but you may desire to learn from them other things that may be encompassed. And then you take all the mo'olelos from all the halal and you entwine it together and weave it. You come with a magnificent mo'olelo, a magnificent story. The last thing is just a little kind of example thing that gives you brief examples of what is in the Hawaii State Archives. And it's a little sketch that I've done that kind of gives you a brief look at the index cards and the various records there. Before I end, I just want to state anything I said again today, you take it at your pace and you go out there and know that when you look at your genealogy, or when you look at the genealogies that you're researching, don't ever give up or quit and say, oh, because never have anything else at this place, pow already. Just note that when you're at the Mormon church, use that as a guideline. Note that the Mormons are not genealogists. They do genealogy to do temple work and ordinance work so that they can be sealed and the records can be sealed in the temple so that they'll have a place in heaven. So it's a very political thing why they do genealogy at the Mormon church. But God bless the Mormons because they're helping us with genealogy. But just note, you might find some names misspelled. Don't get mad at them. Dates not correct. Don't get mad at them. Because I remember I used to go off on them when I first met the Mormons. You know, because I come from a Kalavina and a Catholic background. I used to go to church, 2 churches growing up. And Mormonism was just a no-no until Tutu said, oh, boy, can you go down to Mormon church, go prove some of these documents? But Grandma, that's okay. Might be kind of wrong. We just grab them. So that's how I started to utilize the Mormon church. Not use them, but utilize them. So just note, just gather all your records, decipher out, try to understand, read all of these various types of books. I mean, I even brought this. It's called The Great Mahele of 1848, compiled by Dorothy Barrera. It's unpublished, and it's at the Hawaii State Archives. It talks about the 240-plus chiefs that received land in the Great Mahele. It gives genealogy. It gives mo'olelo, which is genealogy. Yeah? And before I end, I want to end with a mahalo, but is there or are there any questions? Please feel free to ask. And if I can't answer them, I'll just let you guys know straight up. Any questions? None? Okay. Oh, yes.
You mentioned something about the importance of genealogy. What's another part of the importance of genealogy? Why we don't?
Well, there's so many importance of genealogy. For me, the main importance is to know who I am as a Hawaiian. Who am I? I know I am Analū Josephides. I am the son of Marie Aulani Cruz Josephides and of Andreas Demetrio Josephides, and so forth. I come from Waiʻanae, born and raised. I am a Kekoʻolani o Waiʻanae. My mother is a Kekoʻolani o Waiʻanae. My tutu is a Kekoʻolani o Opihihale, Konahema. And my other tutus from wherever they come from. And then I'm able to, every time, feel a little missing part in my body. Because within me is all these elements. Here in my kua is my ancestors holding me up. I'm being held up by my ancestors. And above us is Akua that's keeping us aligned and keeping us focused and moving us forward. Of understanding who I am as a Hawaiian. Having that, some say, third eye, or that ike, gives me that greater grasp of who I am as a Hawaiian. And that's through genealogy, which is a form of mo'olelo. Makawalu, having the 8 eyes that Auntie Pua Kanakaole Kanahele talks about. And being able to see and understand and listen to the elements tells me who I am. That is the number one importance to me as for genealogy. Then everything else is secondary. Hawaiian Homestead, Kamehameha Schools, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, this agency and that agency, and some mojo going, I come from Kamehameha and I own all this land. Which, hey, we should honor them. Yeah, right on. It's like, I got to give you this real quick example. You guys don't mind we're going over time, right? A few minutes? Okay, wonderful. So anyhow, I won't take too much more of your time. This one wahine who was born as a baby in North Kona, raised in Nanakuli, ancestors come from Honomakau, colonized, oppressed, yet she comes into this world and says, I am so-and-so. And I'm leaving out all the names for you know why. It's not important. I am so-and-so. And yet I tell her, oh, wow, so you come from over here? She says, yes. Then I says, oh, but no more anybody from that land with that name. They actually had, but they died. And I knew that for a fact because of where my family comes from. And just doing this and knowing this from when I was little, you could tell me a name and I could tell you, oh, come from this district. Or come from that district. And that's just because of my training. And I says, doesn't your family come from Honomakau, Kohala? Oh, no. But can you help me with my genealogy? I says, well, how come you need my help when you said your family come from over here? So you know already. Or I think I know, I'm not sure. So in the end, she found out she came from the Honomakau Kohala line of that name that she comes from, her last name. And what happened was, she was claiming something else because she lives in that district right now. She flies back and forth to come to school because the landmass that original person with that name had in that district. So I told her like this, I said, well, did you know that the name that you come from Honomakau, is of a higher lineage, of a higher status, are high chiefs, and the one that with all this land is not chiefly at all, maybe Kaukauali'i, of lesser rank, but because of their work they did in the kingdom period, were able to purchase these lands after the Great Mahele occurred, which were government lands, and so forth. Quick! She now descends from the one where she lived now. She descends from the one in Kohala. So, it's stuff like that is, well, what is important to you about genealogy and its importance, its significance? So, I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope I did. Is there any other questions? Uhola ia kamakaloala, pua i he aloha la, Kukai'a ka aloha la. Pave mai na lehua. Mai koʻokuʻia ka halawaila. Mahalo e nā kua. Mahalo e nā punalaia. Mahalo me ke aloha la. Mahalo me ke aloha la. Mahalo, mahalo.